CVM News at 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, footing the bill. University Hospital to pay outstanding import duties after tax exemption fraud. Narrow escape. Family spared after truck overturns on St. James Home. And keeping hope alive. Operators of Hope Gardens get support from US-based charity. In the business report, mobilizing capital at scale with Cygnus. And later on, we'll have the latest in sports.
At 7 Wednesday headlines, courtesy of Heart NSDA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Jesus Christ loves you, and greater love hath no man. Because of his love, he opens the way. He opens eyes, ears, and minds. Open your heart and experience General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and feel his love. Greater love.
CVM News at 7 Wednesday, courtesy of.
Seize the next IPO opportunity seamlessly with the Sagicor e-Invest.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. It's Wednesday, April 1, 2026. I'm Nika Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us. First up this evening, Interim CEO at the University Hospital of the West Indies, Eric Hosin, says the hospital's been tipped by customs that sanctions will ensue for the procurement breaches involving 4 private entities that benefited from the hospital's tax-exempt status. Fines are likely to follow once the investigations are concluded, and he says customs has indicated the hospital will be the one to pay. These were among the revelations made in Parliament's PAC sitting on Tuesday. Millions of dollars spent by the University Hospital of the West Indies to buy back supplies from 4 companies that reportedly benefited from the hospital's tax-exempt status in procuring the very items has left the hospital footing another bill. On Tuesday, Interim CEO Eric Hosin told Parliament's Public Accounts Committee that Customs expects the hospital to pay the fines as the hospital's credentials were used to procure the items.
So there will be a penalty. They will provide that to us in short order, and the other reports will be provided to us in short order also.
Okay, so we will await that. And
I was going to say, so again, as the follow-up, the committee would need, once you have been given that information by Customs, the committee would like a report on what Customs has found in terms of its investigation into all 4 and whatever remedies they have recommended for those companies to deal with the specific breaches.
Okay.
He went on to explain that the funds may be hard to come by, but parliamentarians did not sympathize.
To be clear, Chair, Customs has made it very clear to us that they have nothing to do with those companies. We are the ones, the hospital is the one who they are holding accountable to pay all charges and fines. As to where we will get the money from, it is...
I mean, that's fair. I mean, they didn't, these companies didn't, it's your tax exempt that was utilized.
It is a hospital name that is on the importation documents, and therefore they are holding the importer as being accountable.
So that is why we want to understand, and that's why I probably have to come back
Hossein, who's been acting as CEO since January, was again tackled by opposition members who detailed a few of the questionable transactions cited in a damning Auditor General report.
So, for example, waste bins for private company, 4. It says here was valued at 6.6 million. The company saved 3 million by virtue of the tax exemption, so they paid roughly 3.6. But then the hospital bought back that from private company for 11 million. So I just want to understand. I want to understand why, as the chairman would have asked earlier, why didn't you just utilize your tax exemption in the first instance to buy the thing?
Then another transaction for plates and utensils that cost the private company $1.4 million, but were then resold to the hospital for over $6 million.
There's also, I think, private company 3, cups and dishes, imported for 1.4 million, and then the EU buy it back again for 6.9. So the country has heard about, and there's been glorification and publication around one entity when there are 4 companies, when it's possible it has been institutionalized, and the utilization of the tax exemption is a convention and practice between the EU and its partners. But this buyback, what it is about and who is benefiting.
A drop in food prices helped push Jamaica's inflation down in February. However, new figures from the Statistical Institute revealed the broader economy contracted sharply at the end of 2025 as Hurricane Melissa took its toll. Kevin Black shares the details.
The Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, is reporting a decline in inflation for February 2026, driven mainly by lower food prices. According to Director General Lisha Delati Buder, the All Jamaica Consumer Price Index fell by 0.9% when compared to January.
The All Jamaica CPI for February 2026 declined by 0.9% when compared to January 2026. The main drivers of the monthly inflation rate in February 2026 were food and non-alcoholic beverages at a negative 2.5% as prices for agricultural produce continued to decline, as well as housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, which tempered the decline, increasing by 0.2% due to high electricity rates, and transport, which increased by 0.2% as a result of higher petrol prices.
The Institute is also reporting a sharp economic contraction in the final quarter of 2025 following the impact of Hurricane Melissa. The economy declined by 7.1%, with agriculture and tourism-related industries among the hardest hit.
So during the fourth quarter of 2025, Hurricane Melissa disrupted Jamaica's economic activity across the island. The impact was evident in both the goods producing and services industries. The overall performance in the fourth quarter largely reflected the negative impact of Hurricane Melissa on the economy. For the October to December 2025 quarter, the economy contracted by 7.1%, resulting from declines in both the goods producing and services industries.
Meanwhile, labor force data shows a decline in employment and participation as more persons exited the workforce, particularly in hurricane-affected parishes. Acting Administrative Statistics Director of Statin, Xiomara MacDonald, says this movement helped keep the unemployment rate relatively stable at 3.6%.
When you look at the difference between the 3.6 and the 3.7 for the previous quarter of 2025, it is really not statistically significant, for one. And then two, because the unemployment rate is impacted by both the number of persons unemployed and the size of the labor force, the number of persons employed declined by 30,100. Number of persons unemployed declined by approximately 3,000. And so a total of almost 33,000 persons left the labor force and went outside the labor force. So the unemployment rate is a product of that.
Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
New data from the Traffic Analysis Unit shows a significant decline in both fatal collisions and road deaths across Jamaica. But even as authorities welcome the reduction, new fatal crashes have been recorded as the country approaches the busy Easter holiday period. Akeem Oret reports.
The numbers are dropping, but the danger is far from over. Jamaica is seeing a welcome decline in road deaths, yet even as lives are being saved, fatal crashes continue. Between January 1 and March 31 this year, 54 fatal crashes were recorded, down from 84 over the same period last year. Head of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, Senior Superintendent Lloyd Darby, says while strategies are working, authorities are now turning their focus to a high-risk group.
We have seen year on year that this category is the most problematic. It contributes mostly to our road deaths. So while our pedestrians, the private motor car drivers and pedestrians also contribute, the motorcyclist is most significant. And so far this year, 17 motorcyclists have been killed on our roads. This compares to 26 this time last year.
This shift comes as motorcyclists continue to account for a disproportionately high number of road fatalities. In response, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica has introduced a new national helmet standard. The standard, JS 374-2025, sets strict requirements to ensure helmets sold locally meet international safety benchmarks in a bid to reduce head injuries and save lives. SSP Darby, however, insists the JCF is doing what they can to put an end to this long-standing issue.
It's a lot of work to break the tradition of not wearing helmets and not wearing the approved helmets. But we have a lot of plans in place. We are doing a lot of enforcement activities in regards to the motorcyclists. We are also doing that moral suasion and public awareness around the whole issue of motorcycle deaths.
Authorities also point to speeding, impaired driving and poor judgment as major contributors to fatal crashes.
Speeding is one of the most tickets that is written on a daily basis right across Jamaica, but the citizens continue to speed. I always encourage persons, even if the speed limit is 80 or 50, if the conditions does not permit, then you also have to reduce to a safer speed, a speed that encourages defensive driving. We want persons to be aware of what happens to other road users and to know that it can also happen to them.
With the Easter holidays fast approaching, a period historically marked by an increase in road accidents, police say there will be special operations island-wide.
We are mounting speed checks at what we call the bad spots, the spots where frequent fatal accidents occur. We are mounting speed checks because we can't be everywhere, and so we plan to be where it matters most. We are also mounting deliberate breath testing operations in the vicinity of events.
In the meantime, this message.
So I'm encouraging everyone to be safe during the holiday periods. Arrive alive at your destinations. Have a good holy time with your loved ones, and just be aware of the Road Traffic Act. Be aware also that we are out specifically to prosecute and to enforce and to ensure that persons adhere to the road traffic laws.
Akeem Oret for CVM News.
There's more to come after this break.
Thing on their mind until it becomes the only thing on their mind. Critical illness has many faces. 1 in 4 people will be affected. Protect what matters with critical illness insurance from Sagicor Life.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Hot and spicy wings tossed in our irresistible sauce. Available in sweet red chili and citrus chipotle barbecue. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
Employers, once a month, you have the power to shape Jamaica's future. By paying your hard 3% contribution, you're not just contributing, you're investing in people, in skills, in our economy. Your hard contribution trains working-age Jamaicans, aligns programs with workforce needs, and secures our future. That's not just contribution, it's transformation. Contribute to heart and to your future.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodianne Quarry.
Brought to you by Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services.
Thanks so much for staying with us. A truck driver narrowly escaped serious injuries after the vehicle careened off the roadway and landed atop a house in St. James. There are various perspectives indicating the bizarre incident is not likely the last.
There are many accounts of what happened when this truck landed on the roof of a house below road level on Peachview Road that joins Norwood and Flanker in St. James. From the crowd huddled after the incident, they are in shock yet grateful no lives were lost at this scene. A miracle, they say, as the occupants often pin clothes on the roof in the daytime.
The other vehicle there, so. And when the vehicle pressure take the vehicle there, so, it step back. And from the step back, it done. So come and go over there, so. Yeah, man. No more no happen. The vehicle lock they saw him there, they saw take back.
The men agree it's a dangerous route for any truck, large or small. But inside the house, Gionce was on a call with her mother, unaware of the danger lurking outside. She was trapped after the incident.
I was in my house on my phone with my mother. I was going to work to look about breakfast to eat. While I was in there, I was talking to my mother. My mother said she wanted to see the room that I said I cleaned. So I walked away with the phone to show the room, only to hear something collapse. In my head, something definitely came over the hill. I came around in the kitchen part to see what taking place, only to see the bottom part. I couldn't even move, so I was trying to knock off the back door. Couldn't knock off, so I walk underneath the truck and jump over the wall and escape.
It's also no surprise her first detectable emotion.
Nervous, everything. I had to come out, take a deep breath. A lady gave me some water to drink, and the ambulance come and they decided to do a little check up on me to see if I was okay. My pressure was high though, but I was quite fine. I was dizzy, nervous.
How about the driver of the truck?
The driver of the truck, I saw him lie down and they took him to the hospital. That's all I knew. He had a cut and stuff.
It also came as no surprise. She says they've had many close calls since there is no barrier wall. The driver of the truck was the sole occupant and he sustained no major visible wounds. He was rushed to hospital. Another local explains.
Not even 1 month in a big vehicle. It's a small vehicle to drive. So I have the experience. And that feeling.
If I maybe I push a car up there, so I make car.
While taxi operators are pleased with the impending 16% fare increase, some commuters are irate, with some vowing to boycott public transportation. But taxi operators are asking the public to be understanding. Natasha Williams tells us more.
President of the All Voice Route Taxi Association, Lorraine Finnegan, says only a minority of operators are anticipating the 16% increase in June. Taxi operators, he reasons, are fearful it may be rolled back.
They are saying that they have gotten these promises over and over within the last 2 years, and they are fearful of the fact that this could have been another promises that will not be fulfilled. If inflation is satisfactory until June, I am confident that we will get it. But if we ever have a spike in inflation, the minister tell us in one meeting that what look worse than Wobe.
This follows a long-standing agreement of an approved 35% fare increase in October 2023, but only 19% was implemented immediately, with the remaining 16% delayed due to inflation concerns. Operators are not willing to engage in a similar arrangement this time around.
We strongly believe that since inflation is down to a satisfactory level, we should get our 16%. So that was our position then. We wouldn't have taken the 8 that was offered or the 10. Now, if a percentage of it is offered to us at this time, it is something that the sector leaders will have to take into serious consideration. I am speaking to you now as an owner. So I want my 16%. As a driver, I want the 16%. But when you look at the reality, the people who we carry to collect from, it is going to be affecting them. Because we move somewhere about 75% of the workforce.
President of the St. James Taxi Association, Dion Chance, says he doesn't believe the timing for this increase will ever be right for some members of the motoring public.
We are in challenging times, and no matter how you take it financially, a lot of persons are burdened. But you also have to look at it from another perspective, that costs are going up, the input costs are going up, and in order to stay in business, everybody needs a decent return on their...
He is therefore urging the public to be more understanding. Natasha Williams, CVM News.
The race is on to help raise funds to sustain the beauty of Jamaica's famous Hope Gardens and those who work to maintain it. An MOU was signed on Monday between the U.S.-based Blue Maho Charity Foundation and the managers of Hope Gardens, the Nature Preservation Foundation. Hope Alive will need more than local hands. It's partly why an MOU was signed on Monday by the operators of Hope Gardens and a U.S.-based charity. It seeks to open doors of opportunity within the Jamaican diaspora in the UK, the US, and Canada to ensure the gardens do not wither away.
Blaine Stoddart, who is the chairman of the board of Hope Gardens, reached out to our chairman at the Blue Maho Charitable Foundation, David Mullings, and asked if, we were open to a fiscal sponsorship partnership to help them raise funds from the diaspora in the US, UK, and Canada. Of course, David jumped at the opportunity, who wouldn't, helping to preserve this beautiful natural space for our families. As you know, the Hope Gardens belongs to not just us, but the diaspora. So we are honored to be selected as this partner. So we're reaching out to the diaspora to donate because they need help to bridge the funding gap. $500,000 US they're short every year, and they also want to improve the facilities.
The partnership will see special focus placed on generating additional funds for the gardens and ensuring financials do more than simply fill a gap. The gardens benefit from a $60 million annual subvention from the government, but operators say it will take more than double that to ensure impact. The project will span 3 phases.
We need equipment to cut the lawns, especially when it rains a lot. It's really a challenge when we only have 1 or 2 lawnmowers working. And we also need to be able to deal with the salaries for staff. A lot of the persons that we have here are barely, they're being paid at minimum wage. And so it is important that we have qualified persons that can help us to take the gardens beyond where it is today. So yes, it's beautiful, and a lot of persons come in and say, it's nice and well kept, but we can do so much better if we're able to pay people better and possibly bring on more persons on staff.
The charity, the Bloomahoe Foundation, is all too excited to inject hope and funds into the gardens and its 60 staff members who've maintained this oasis in the city.
The shortfall for the budgeting annually is $500,000 or about. And beyond that, they want to upgrade the facilities. They want to make sure that visitors from across the world have a better visiting experience. You know, as you know, maintaining a property this size is a tremendous cost. Not to mention upgrading it, taking care of the animals, all of this is very expensive. They also have a lot of events here, but they have to be mindful of noise pollution. So they want to enhance the facilities to ensure that there's soundproofing. So all of that is extremely expensive, but we think we can help them. Mr. Stoddart has pledged the first $1 million Jamaican dollars, so we're so excited, and we're asking everyone, islandforward.com, Save Hope Gardens. You can visit the site later on in the week. We're setting up all the pay buttons now. U.S. donors, you get a tax-deductible receipts.
The National Fisheries Authority has declared the start of the annual close season for spiny lobster, warning that strict penalties will be enforced for breaches. But while the move is aimed at protecting the species, fisherfolk say this year's season was already difficult. Carla Ramdeen reports.
The National Fisheries Authority, NFA, has announced that the annual closed season for spiny lobster begins April 1 and runs until April 30, with fishing strictly prohibited during that period. The authority says the closure is critical to allow the species to reproduce and maintain sustainable stock levels. It is also warning that anyone intending to store or export lobster after the first 21 days of the closed season must submit a request by April 15 or face penalties. Offenders could be fined up to $3 million or face up to 2 years in prison as enforcement is heightened. Meanwhile, chairman of the Montego Bay Fishermen's Cooperative Society, Richard Bowen, says the season was already challenging.
A lot of the fisher folks, one of the main things, a lot of fisher folks lost their fish pots, their traps throughout Melissa, and they're still in the process of recovery. So with that, we're saying that less fish trap, less catch. So when their fish traps are not enough, their catch are minimal. So you find that within this past lobster season, it was minimal for the fisher folks on this end of the island because we didn't get enough good fair weather fishing. We're still recovering now because nothing happened overnight, and it's a slow process because everything is money too. And now with the war coming in and everything, it becomes more, because as gas goes up, everything goes up for the fisher folks because we use a lot of gas to go to sea.
Bowen says fishers are now shifting their focus to conch, hoping for improved conditions. Despite the challenges, Bowen supports the closed season, noting that it plays a key role in protecting the species and sustaining the industry.
We have to do that because that's how we protect our endangered species, by having seasonal, and so they can breed and we can have enough to eat and to supply the community in general.
Carla Ramdeen, CVM News.
Sections of the island have been receiving heavy rainfall over the last week. Manager of Communications and Customer Service at the National Works Agency says this may be due to overflowing underground aquifers, adding that the authority is prepared to continue to handle the situation.
Urging citizens in going about their business to exercise extreme caution when they are doing so, especially in areas that are susceptible to flooding. Santa Cruz is one of those areas where we have had challenges over the years. We have done work in this space. We do recognize that more will have to be done, but that
CVM News at 7 continues after the break.
Oh, we are going with some big old bag here. You run where?
You is what? Immigration officer? Mind your own business.
You have anything to declare in that bag?
Officer, you not got nothing better to go do.
Open up the bag.
Oh, me not open nothing.
If you don't comply with the law, I'm going to ask you to step out the vehicle. Where are you going so much bun?
Officer, it's Easter. Everybody have to get bun. My wife, my mother, my father, even my granny have to get bun.
So what? I can't get a bun?
Of course. Because, officer, even you have to get bun.
Why they put this in a car?
Buy your mother's bakery Easter bun and share it with the whole family. Because this Easter, everybody have to get bun.
New KFC Saucy Wings. Available in sweet red chili and citrus chipotle barbecue. KFC, it's finger licking good. The time by KFC is
7:30. Critical illness has many faces. 1 in 4 people will be affected. Protect what matters with critical illness insurance from Sagicor Life.
So glad you stayed. It's now time for the business report with Joel Crosskill.
Lots to share with you in the business report today. Upon the return of the Cygnus Business Breakfast Summit, held under the theme Building Resilience, Mobilizing Capital for a Sustainable Caribbean. Cygnus, as the appointed fund manager of the US $135 million Caribbean Community Resilience Fund, CCRF, a 10-year impact investment fund facilitating the deployment of capital into critical sectors necessary for development, as we hear from Gerardo Aguilar, head of Climate and Resilience at Cygnus.
And that's where the Caribbean Community Resilience Fund from Cygnus is, I would say, an innovation in channeling all that money with those two elements, science and technology, available to us, right? So I think the opportunity is to truly support people such as yourselves. You're here because you have an interest and a commercial interest on a business. That's why you're here. So from Cygnus' standpoint, we want to work with those leaders that are seeking the science and technology applicable to the geopolitical context that we're in.
Designed to address the pressing challenges posed by economic shocks and climate change. The CCRF represents a collaborative effort by the CARICOM Development Fund, Cygnus, USAID, Cross Boundary, and the Rocky Mountain Institute Island Energy Program. Emmanuel De Rosa, founder and CEO of Sunterra Energy, has received permits and financing for a 50-megawatt solar farm in Jamaica named Midnight Sun, with a 20-year license to supply power to the national grid by 2027.
You know, the solar farms and solar projects have proved their worth, you know, coming in at some of the lowest cost energy, presently delivering, you know, power to the grid here in Jamaica and across the Caribbean. I mean, that's a given, but we can only go so far with intermittent energy. It can only really deliver the first 10, 15%, and beyond that, we need to start adding storage to it. So when you look at our 50 megawatt project in Trelawney, it's selling energy at 5.99 cents a kilowatt hour in its first year. So that's a tremendous, it's probably one of the lowest costs of energy in Jamaica, and that's US cents. But anyway, so there's an opportunity there. When we look at the government's announcement last week of another 220 megawatts of renewable energy with associated with another 110 megawatts of battery storage, I mean, that is going to further enable, you know, the reduction of energy costs here in Jamaica.
For Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change Matthew Samuda, the pursuit of large-scale transformational projects would be accelerated further if Caribbean contractors had higher capacities.
One of the challenges we're actually going to face is not necessarily whether or not there is global interest from a capital perspective or there is a suite of investments. The question is the implementation capacity at a contractor level. We have very few enterprise level contractors that operate in the Caribbean, and because for a long time I'd say what you were saying was probably worse than how you'd assessed it. The opportunity wasn't large enough for sufficient enterprise licensed contractors to operate in the Caribbean. You really have about 3, regardless of English or Spanish-speaking countries that are operating here. And we will need 20 for the region to be able to deploy the sort of resilience projects at scale, at speed that we will if we're going to be resilient to the climatic risks.
For Beresford Gray, CEO and president of Cygnus, it requires an expansion of the scope of what Caribbean entrepreneurs and investors conceive as being possible.
In the case of Jamaica, for example, we have great successes in attracting capital and allow investors to make great return. We have the Port Authority, we have the highway, many examples. So how do we sell that story? How do we go to the international market with opportunities that build on our track record in P3 so that they can have confidence in understanding that they will make money and get their money back in these projects?
The Cygnus president and CEO also believes local players must be prepared to take over those projects when the time comes.
If I'm an international investor, sometime, if you are asking me to invest in infrastructure, I would love to see a local guy there, right? Because I know that I'm going to have to exit this asset at some point. So I would like to see a local investor who is saying, yeah, that highway is great, that airport is great, that sewage plant and so forth is great, and I will be there, because when you are ready to exit, I would like to be at the table to buy you out, to take you out. So a part of the crowding effect must be that local capital, pension funds, and I keep saying this a lot, with long-term view, should be in these resilience projects. It cannot be that we are putting our pension money with these fund managers and they can't take long-term view and bankable, de-risk, attractive projects.
And that was your business report. I'm Joel Crosskill.
We now turn to regional and international news.
We begin with news in the region. A Russian tanker carrying 100,000 metric tons of crude oil has arrived in Cuba. It's the first shipment of oil to reach Havana since the U.S. imposed blockade began in January. We turn to Al Jazeera.
Thank God, now maybe our transportation will flow again. Thank God.
But Russian fuel won't reach the pumps right away. Russian rather than Cuban authorities announced the arrival of the Anatoly Kolodkin, a tanker that's carrying 750,000 barrels of crude to the port of Matanzas here in Cuba. It's enough, according to experts, for 15 days of badly needed fuel. But it first needs to be refined, and that could take up to 20 days. Cuba has been under a fuel blockade since early January, with President Donald Trump threatening to punish any country that violated it.
Russia, of course, believes it is our duty not to stand aside and to provide the necessary assistance to our Cuban friends. We are pleased that the shipment of petroleum products has already arrived.
There'd been speculation of a confrontation if the U.S. used force to stop the tanker. But as it approached Cuba, President Donald Trump made a surprise announcement of his own.
If a country wants to send some oil into Cuba right now, I have no problem with it. If other countries want to do it, it doesn't bother me much. It's not going to have an impact. Cuba's finished. They have a bad regime.
The American Civil Liberties Union Executive Director Anthony Romero and National Legal Director Cecilia Wang spoke after the Supreme Court heard arguments over the legality of birthright citizenship, at which President Trump made a historic visit. Reuters tells us more.
I come out of the court today with the thought of my parents and so many of our parents and ancestors who came to this country seeking refuge, seeking new opportunities, and who relied on the rule that we've had in this country